Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hey, it's Fredrick Hicks and Mark Katona.
Here we are, another week. Can't believe
Another
how
week.
quick this week went by.
Welcome to Financial Fridays, everyone. It's great to see you all again, and I hope you had a very productive week, all things considered, with the uncertain times we all live in globally. What do you think about that, Mark? How'd your week go?
A lot of travel. Can't believe it. I traveled for the first time this week since March. Okay, kind of scary. Half a plane ride down to Florida, half a plane ride back home to New Jersey. And
all right. Did you have your goggles and your on?
I had my mask on. I wash my hands a lot. I keep some lotion with me just to make sure my hands stay nice and clean. You know, it's the new normal. Okay.
All right.
I mean, I don't know if we're going to hear any more about this after Election Day, but for right now, it's the new normal.
All right. I'm liking where this is going. So let's talk about something that's near and dear right now that many of our mature clients are greatly concerned about. Speaking of post-election, right? Today's topic is going to be about Social Security. My goodness. All right. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be very educational for everyone here. And do you want to say a few things before we start? I just learned something about my co-host, that he is an author. And he's written a really great book about Social Security. I haven't read it myself, but I now will read it. But I think we should really promo that on the show, because anything educational is what this show is about, right, guys? So, Mark, tell us about your book.
Yeah, the book was written last year. Do or don't, now or later. You know, Social Security is just such an intricate time in our lives, and a lot of people don't really think about it until they're hovering around 60 years old, and they just start to think about it, but they really never know the benefits if they plan it correctly. And I think today, Fred, you know, what you're going to talk about, because I got to see the inside scoop already, everybody.
Oh, he's cheating. He's cheating.
And Fred has one heck of a show for us today. But for those who are interested in receiving a signed copy of my book, all you'll need to do is basically text income planning, hashtag Financial Friday to 36260, download the app, and I would be happy to send you a copy of my signed book. So thank you, Fred. I really wasn't going to talk about it until the end, but
no, I actually think we should plug it in the beginning, because I know this presentation to some degree can actually be a little overwhelming, and I don't want that book to get lost in translation. I wanted to actually talk about the book more so than the presentation, because after we actually show them what we're talking about, then they can reinforce it with your book. How about that?
How about that? That's a great idea. And I think that we have so much to talk about today that share that book. People know that there are other books out there, but this is Marc Katona's book, okay? And it gets to be seen first time in over 100 countries, okay? Right here on Financial Friday with Fred Hicks and Marc Katona. We're bringing this book out to international, so people around the world could see what's happening inside of the United States. So these aren't just rules for the states. It has nothing to do with the state. This has to do with federal, okay? And rules change all the time, and you have to coordinate everything. So let's get started, because Fred's got so much knowledge, and I'm excited to listen and participate.
Absolutely. Same thing here. Is anything in particular you want to kind of mention before we kind of jump right into this?
Well, I would tell people grab a piece of paper or a pad, pen. Okay. There's so much to learn. And Social Security is an evolution of change every single year. And what we're talking about this year might be just a little bit different numbers next year. It's been that way just about every year. You know, they said for a while things weren't going to be changing with Social Security, but I'm told there's over 487 ways to claim. So when it comes time, you don't want to disinherit yourself. You want to claim at the right time. Okay, so you're going to maximize your benefits and coordinate it with everything else you have going on in life.
Gotcha.
So paper and a pen is what everybody should have. So you're taking good notes. And that way you can get a lot of your questions answered. We're going to give you time near the end of the show for those who I imagine have specific questions. But keep in mind, people's answers will be different than your answers. Okay? People have different ages. They're married, single, divorced. There's so many rules. And the opportune time might not be the same opportune time for yourself, even if you're the same age. So.
All right. Well, with no further ado, let's dive right on in, okay? All right. So when it comes to Social Security, it's really straightforward, is it not, Mark?
Well, when you say straightforward,
I mean easy. I mean really easy. I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds of all the details of it, but don't you think it's reasonably easy?
No.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can make it easy then. Okay. All right. So when it comes to Social Security, what we're looking at is, in this particular example, is that, guys, it all comes down to how you have prepared for retirement. And with any luck, you prepare for it by filling up your investment tank, and you filled up your savings tank as well. You're also looking at that your income is about to decrease, and it's going to look like something totally different for those of you who are truly going to retire and like kick your heels up compared to someone who realistically may decide to do a second act. Okay. But for those of you who are going to, walk away from work altogether, there will be no second act. This is what your life is going to look like conceptually with the utilizing the tanks that we discussed last week. Social Security is going to have a little bit of a smaller pipe compared to when you were working, which had a larger pipe. Okay. So your income is reduced as a result. But notice one thing very, very carefully, guys. That is bolted onto the tax filter, this brass plate. Who put this here? Well, we live in the United States. And that is a part of living in this great country that we live in, that we must pay our fair share. So the key to it is, guys, at the end of the day, when you're on Social Security, and if it's Social Security alone, it's going to decrease. It's going to be about 70% of your income is going to come from how you saved along the way. 30% of it, realistically up to 40%, may be the supplement that we all call Social Security. So the only way to keep that income flowing at that high level of 100% is that we start taking withdrawals, okay? And we pay the tax, and then hopefully we've prepared that this tank is so full that it's going to last for a great period of time, and that we're going to have a nice savings tank to take its place to keep us going to their end of life, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today is Social Security. And what does it look like, and what do we need to do in order to prepare for the inevitability of retirement? And that is savings, guys. So many people neglect their savings. Wouldn't you agree, Mark?
They do. They neglect it, and then when it comes time near the end of the tunnel, sometimes it's just a little bit too late. So the quicker that we realize that we need to have an extra tank out there that's going to be there for us and last as long as we do, it's kind of really important to justify it earlier versus later.
Absolutely. So many people are going to go into retirement with a lot of debt, just like you see in the image here. So they need to look at their savings a little bit differently, okay? And then over dependence on Social Security, because Social Security is supposed to be a supplement. So this is your wake up call. Over reliance on Social Security is not a plan, okay? Hope is not a strategy. I'm sure you've heard that before. So, sorry, America, you can't live on Social Security alone. I'm sorry to tell you. We must look at other ways of how we're going to go into retirement and truly be able to be retired if that's what your goal is, or be able to develop your second act if that's what you so desire. Okay? So, fewer than 20% of companies today, first and foremost, even offer any employment pensions. So many of us are going to find ourselves over relying on Social Security. We do have some answers for that, because this is an educational forum to increase your financial literacy and give you some other options that you might want to consider if you don't have a pension plan. But just remember, Social Security benefits only make up for about maybe over 30% of your income, according to Social Security Administration. And a lot of people don't realize Social Security has only been around since 1935. Isn't that a fun fact, Mark?
It is a fun fact. And you talked about something a little bit with the pensions and retirement on that last slide. And why do you think pensions are going away, Fred? What's the reason?
Well, pensions are going away because a lot of companies are looking at their profit margins, in my opinion. Okay, I'll say again, in my opinion. Their profit margins are looking even better, okay, when they can push that guarantee of loyalty over to a 401k or 403b plan and put you in a position of managing your own money instead of keeping their promise of loyalty. What's your reasons, Mark?
My reasons are exactly which yours are, mirrored side by side, right? Right, spot on. They also figured out that, we're living a lot longer today, okay? Life expectancies when Social Security began were around 62 years old, okay? Today, we're looking at life expectancies in the 80s, okay? So people are living longer. And companies figured out, well, if they're living longer, if we're providing a pension for them for a longer period of time, there's a lot less profit, like you just said, profit margins for us, for our company owners.
It is.
What they do, what you just said, they do these self-directed plans where you're picking your own funds, you're choosing, hey, whatever it is. And you could be losing money, you could be making money, but there's not really something stable that's going to give you a guaranteed income stream from that when you decide to hang up the cleats, compared to a pension would have given you an annuity payout over a period of your lifetime.
Well, it's profit sharing essentially, isn't it, Mark?
It is. It totally is that. But the problem is that it's more whatever the profits were, staying inside of the company versus going back out to the employees.
That's right. It's the promise of loyalty, right? To help them build their company, the promise is to give you a benefit when you've arrived at that time period where you're worn out, you're done. So let's move on. Let's move on by kind of delving a little bit more into the link between anxiety and aging, which is where I kind of segue perfectly into. How many people in America right now, speaking, and everyone that's watching and hearing us speak now, are anxious about their future and the future of the program, whether if it will be here? Well, let's go into the weeds on that, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions. And I'm going to just roll this out because, guys, I want to make sure that we get rid of some of the concerns that some of you might have, and let you know that everyone feels the same way, but we want you to share this information with other people to help them see it differently, because social media can kind of take us in a whole different direction and get our minds all in the weeds. So let's look at the first one, or first slide of this section, is understanding what misconception is. It's a view or an opinion that typically is incorrect, but it's not deliberate in most cases. You know, people talk about these misconceptions. I mean, very, very innocently. Okay. They write about things that are untrue while believing them to be true. So keep that in mind and wrap your minds around that concept and think of all the many things that's happened, here lately in this world of uncertainty that could, have you feeling one way about one particular topic that maybe others don't agree with. And it's all based on how people innocently, whether they mean to or don't mean to, are saying things that might lead to, I don't know, devastation financially or even health wise. Right, Mark?
Absolutely. Our common entity is our buddy Don Buddy, and he says a statement that it's embedded in our heads is, if you thought something was true and it turned out not to be true, when would you want to know?
Yeah. And that falls right in line with this concept, untrue while believing it to be true. So let's keep moving. What do you believe? Okay. Well, many people I talk to every day thinks the program is going to be reduced or gone. And then when I speak to my millennials, they think it's nothing going to be left to collect by the time they reach retirement age. So there's a lot of myths, but there are also a lot of facts. So let's talk about the facts. Okay. The 5 most common misconceptions that we hear, we're going to see if we can get some answers for you. We're going to find the information, and we're going to explore the facts together. Sound like a plan? Well, let's move on. Social Security covers retiree living benefits, okay, or living expenses. Is that true? Well, let's take a look. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. A little technical difficulties there, but supplemental income stream. So many people believe they can just get by on their Social Security, but we really need to look at this as a supplemental to your overall plan. Okay. There's many different puzzle pieces that fit and make up a retirement income stream. Okay. So sorry about this, guys. So the fact that you need 70% of your pre-retirement income to live comfortably is what Social Security Administration tries to get most people to understand as they're moving towards that retirement. When you first start working, when you were 18 years old, and you first start working and moving through the process, that was really what the goal was, is to create another income stream for you. Okay. Just like they always say, what type of annuities do we have? We have 3 types in the United States, and today's topic is about Social Security, and that is your public annuity. So you must look at saving more in order to be able to come alongside of Social Security and let that move you further down the road, factoring in cost of living increases. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Okay. I'm getting a little bit of delay here, but that's okay, guys. Just bear along with me. So what we're looking at is for people with average earnings of Social Security benefits, Social Security will only replace about 40% of that. And if you're a higher earner, it's going to drop down to about 30%. So your goal is to leverage, okay, your Social Security benefits to stay above the cost of living, ideally. Okay, even though we're going to talk about that here in just a second about COLAs. Okay. So I'm going to move forward here. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties here, but so timing is everything. So when we're looking at the 4 different ages, 62, 65, 66, and 67, what I want you guys to wrap your heads around is, do you start early? Okay. Or in order to get smaller, checks, or do you delay it in order to get bigger checks? So it's up to you to decide what more money looks like to you. Okay. So life expectancy by gender for ladies is 81 and males are 76. So if you're looking at it the way the screen is trying to describe it to you, if you live longer, you're going to get more smaller checks. If you live shorter, okay, you're going to get fewer larger ones, but you have to pay attention to the average length of life. What you believe based on family history, maybe the oldest living relative that you might have, okay, and try to guess when you think you're going to be called home. Okay, let's call it that. So CDC puts out some great facts on that. So the 35 highest earning years is how you gauge what your Social Security is going to look like. And you have to factor in that one word that starts with an I. And what's that, Mark? Inflation, right? Yeah, inflation. All right. So the lifetime average earnings, looking at it per AARP, is about $1,400 a month back in 2019. By comparison, if you waited to full retirement age, it's around $3,770. However, to get that increase, you must wait until what? Age 70, guys. Age 70. So many of you are saying, no, I don't want to wait that long because I may not be here. Are there any other options? Well, yes, it is. So let's take a look. Social Security, early or late. So in this example, early withdrawal age of 62. Okay. Take it early. Early withdrawal monthly amount, let's say it's about $1,800. The last withdrawal age, let's say that you wait till full retirement age is age 70. The last withdrawal monthly amount is about $2,500. And these are just guesses, guys, on what we are trying to make an example, just so you can kind of wrap your head around whether you should take it early or late. And let's assume a rate of return of maybe about 6%, which is about average of what the market does. Wouldn't you agree with that, Mark?
I would say so, right around there.
All right. And let's say that we project our age of our mortality at age 84. What does that look like? Well, it looks like that we might want to take more smaller checks, doesn't it? Because it equals $1 million versus taking it later in life and our mortality, we're closer to the end of life, and it's only going to gain us about $740,000. So earlier payments are better. Okay. So let's look at snowball effect, because we all know the longer we wait, there's an 8% compound that can be gained. Okay. So the more money you save, the more money you can earn on those returns over time. And that just doesn't play with Social Security. That also plays with the market or with other private reserve strategies that we could discuss on maybe another time. But we do want you guys to know that there are other options other than holding out and waiting just to get an 8% compound, not knowing what your mortality may in fact be. So, but it doesn't negate the fact, the power of compounding, that if we start early in the beginning in year one and we go 20 years from now, naturally it's going to grow faster over time. So if you're a little late at it, guys, we can show you ways through education of how you can improve upon it and make a difference in your life. But it really comes down to how you feel about what you want your retirement to look like. And we're going to talk about that as we move forward here with cost of living increases. Will it actually outpace inflation? Well, guys, the cost of living is sky high. and it's about to get even higher based on our opinion. Okay. In our opinion, COLAs versus inflation, it rises every year. We all know inflation just tips up and tips up and tips up. And if you think about when you started work at age 18 compared to where you're at now, how do you think inflation has made your money feel like, okay, based on the dollars that how you are using your dollars the most efficient manner? Know that one thing, COLAs are not keeping up with inflation. Okay. And this is why we've lost about 33% of our buying power since 2000. So COLAs are definitely not staying in line with it. I know that we all believe that we're going to see increases along the way to adjust for it, but we have a thing called Medicare Part B that kicks in. And when it kicks in, that cost is really absorbed within that deduction. Tell me if I'm wrong, Mark.
No, you're spot right on. I mean, and that Medicare benefit increased in cost this past year. Okay, and so where people were planning on a typical budget for the year, now this came into a factor which they weren't even planning on. So, and that's something that we have to pay attention to. It's a lot of these hidden vehicles out there that we don't even think of in our planning until it hits us right in the face, and now we're subject to higher costs along with cost of living increasing at the same time.
Indeed. So here I'm translating and going into 2020. Seniors are looking at about 1.6 in COLA, which brings that average monthly benefit to about $1,400 up to $1,500. Does that feel like a real raise? You have to ask yourself. It's not. It's nothing to be excited about. So you have to have savings in order to move yourself forward. So we want to help you see yourselves, whether if you are right at the door of Social Security or coming on to the Social Security bandwagon in the next 10 years. We want you to really think about what you're doing and how you're doing it and how we can help you do it better. Okay. So Social Security is running out of money. We hear this one all the time. Social Security is going broke. Well, we don't agree. Okay. Do we, Mark? We don't agree with that.
We don't agree at all. No.
All right. So a lot of people ask us, will it last until I retire? Well, we're here to tell you it absolutely will be here. Okay. And let's prove it. Okay. Don't take our word for it. So for years, news outlets have been, spreading misconceptions, not deliberately. They're just reporting what's going on. But in truth, remember I said myths over facts, the population is just aging too fast. I mean, I know it sounds that simple, but it really is. And Social Security can't sustain that and will inevitably run out of money. So when you're hearing the news saying that Social Security is going bankrupt, not quite. And again, I'm going to prove it to you in the next slides. Okay. So payroll tax 101. Guys, when you're looking at your deductions from your check, you find that about 6.2% is coming out. Well, your employer matches that 6.2 and it totals to about 12.4. Now, if you're self-employed listening to this, listening to our Financial Fridays, you already know that 12.4% is what you are paying. You're paying the entire amount. But if you are salaried in W-2, you understand the puzzle piece here that you work directly with your employer in order to meet your requirement for your payroll tax. So in 2018, it's over $869 billion in payroll taxes and other non-interest revenue that we really seriously, if you look at all that money spread out here in this slide, you can see what we're trying to describe to you, that inside of that trust is about $2.8 trillion sitting there and is expected to still be there in 2021, even with these uncertain times. So the program is very far from going bankrupt. So I wouldn't be too terribly concerned, but let's still go a little bit deeper in this discussion, because you're probably not all convinced. I mean, you're like, well, I don't know. It sounds, good. But how do I get that money? Okay. Well, and how does it keep the staying power of this myth? Well, let's keep it simple, really super simple. In this example, I'm going to use the KISS principle to prove it to you. There's an abundance of cash reserves, guys. And if you'll notice right here, the money weighs a lot heavier than the taxes. That's because there's more money there than taxes bringing it in. And it is a surplus sitting there, as I've shared with you, of 2.8 trillion. Well, the interest earned on those reserves, what our government does is they invest those monies into securities. Now, many of you are familiar with treasury bonds, T-bills, bonds. In this example, as you see here in the pictures, double E's. With those securities that come in, the government is earning interest on those dollars to grow it. And as it grows, they're taking that interest that is accumulated from that investment, okay, and using those dollars in order to fund the shortfall, okay? So if that is true, if our government continues to do what they're doing, we will be depleted with funds available to you as the beneficiary by 2034. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, but didn't. So everyone has to start figuring out how to talk nice to each other, because we have a serious situation here. But let me tell you what you should be more concerned about. And that's not people getting along. That's, we live in the United States of America. The worst thing could happen, guys, because you know about payroll taxes now, payroll 101. The worst thing could happen is that your benefits decrease by about 25% because people are still working. Tell me I'm wrong, Mark. People
You're 100% right on. The problem, though, is that the amount of people working versus the amount of people collecting. Okay, this is the first year that there's more people receiving than those that are working.
Very true. Very, very, very true. So again, if the worst thing could happen is $750. In the beginning of the presentation, we talked about the over-reliance on Social Security. So we must do what? Save more. So that when we hit times like the uncertainty we're in right now, where, unemployment is very, very high, we have already prepared for the inevitability. We just need to learn more or greater savings habits. And the savings habits are not just saving the money in the savings account. It is where you can actually save the money, and that money is compounding at a rate of interest that is above the standard of living adjusted for inflation, and quite possibly, and Mark, tell me if I'm wrong, could be tax-free.
You're not wrong at all. You're spot right on. Loving hearing it.
So America's attitude has to change. To deal with this issue, we can't put all our trust into the legislators, okay? Because essentially they have to react by reducing the benefits. That means we're going to have to pay more taxes. Okay. So doesn't matter which party or tribe you belong to, Democrat, Republican, red, or blue, doesn't matter. Taxes will need to be increased, but we also believe it's a double whammy. It has to be a combination of it actually pushing up full retirement age to a higher age, so that when the taxes increase, it works in conjunction by having it accumulate longer before you can take it. So, very important that we vote. If we feel very strongly about Congress getting along, then we have to vote. And we're coming up on that time period. November cometh, right, Mark?
Absolutely.
November cometh. So I'm going to talk about the fourth one. We're nearing our fifth one. So people don't pay taxes on Social Security, Fred. I think you're totally wrong about that. I don't agree with you. I don't think people actually have to pay it. Now, in our last show, we talked about 50 to 85%. Well, let's look at how that breaks down, because paying taxes on Social Security really depends on how much you're bringing in ordinary income, right, Mark?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
One of the factors.
So one of the factors. So 1040s and Social Security, about 40% of those collecting Social Security will have to pay some federal tax. Okay. Here's the other point. The other point is, how is it calculated? Combined income. So Social Security defines combined income as a total of your adjusted gross income, your AGI. So if you take your AGI plus non-taxable interest, like municipal bonds or T-bills, if you have those, half of the Social Security benefits will equal your combined income. So those of you who might be looking at this, just hit your print screen and take keep this little equation here, because combined income on an individual, remember I just said, it's going to depend on where you fall at with your combined income. If you fall in the combined income of 25 to 34,000, you're going to have to pay up to 50%. However, anything greater than that is 85% if you are an individual. Now, if you're married, and I'm actually showing you the individual and married at the same time when we advance to the next slide, it changes a little bit. It goes from jointly from 32,000 to 44,000 is up to 50%, while greater than 44,000 will be taxed at 85%. So if you're unaware of these combined income limits, I hope that you've taken quite a bit of notes on this. If not, rewatch this again, because taxes are real. And we are not in the highest tax bracket that we could be. If I showed you some events that happened along the way, we've been in a higher tax basis than we have been right now, which we are right now, excuse me. So World War I, we're as high as what, 80%? Right at it. And we go over here and look at World War II, we're above 90%, greater than 90. Right here, and we looked at Vietnam War, and I'm not just trying to use war as an example, but that's times in which taxes have been the highest is during wartime, is as high as 70% during the Vietnam War. If I went down here, Bill Clinton, that was a time period in which people felt pretty comfortable with where we were at taxes and with taxes. And then we have right here in 2019 or in 2020, 2019, we're not quite finished with 2020. We have some rates and concerns. So if you have any monies in the market, say $100,000, and we're currently at, let's say, you're at a 24% tax rate. And tell me if I'm wrong and correct me, Mark, anywhere in there where you want to chime in. If you're at a 24%, when you're taking withdrawal, How much belongs to IRS?
A lot.
Well, 24,000. 76,000 is your share. Okay. And we're not talking that they're going to take it all at one time. We're talking about as you take withdrawals and as the tax plan evolves and changes, and as each tax plan has a sunset, we don't know where you may be or who the president may be or what your ability to defer the tax may be at that time. So
I think a really good thing to point out here with those that are watching today is that we could be putting our money in a lower tax bracket and pulling it out in a higher tax bracket. And that's a scary thing. And people don't realize that if they realize they started working at 18 years old, okay, go back to the beginning of time on an average when people started working. Somewhere along the way, they started to realize, hey, I need to start putting money in that 401k plan or 403b or their savings plan, whatever the tax deferred plan was. But they never looked at tax bracket or even thought about tax bracket. The tax bracket was never in the conversation.
Yeah.
Now, as tax rates have raised over time, okay, and in the last couple of years, they went down just a smidge, okay, but that sunset provision that we talked about, they're set to go up in 2026. Well, now they're going to go up again. So the point I'm trying to make is your tanks of money that you're creating for supplementing with Social Security, it's all about tax efficiency, okay? And putting your money in the tanks that are going to give you a better bang for your dollar, safety, security, knowing that it's earning a higher rate than inflation rate. That's really important. And knowing that it can be a tax I call it tax-free or tax efficiently. So
tax advantage, another good term, right? Tax advantage might be another term, Mark.
Absolutely, yes. Tax advantage. Love that term.
All right. So if we believe that strongly, then we also can say that, taxes could be as high when you are entering retirement or taking withdrawals. Could it be high as, 40%? It could be.
It could be as high
as 50%, couldn't it?
It could be as high as what our government allows it to be. Okay.
Or the servicing of the debt, right? The servicing of that well-known debt clock, right? So let's move forward from taxes. Don't want to talk about it too much, gloom and doom, right? Taxes could be higher in the future. But let's look at what taxation on Social Security benefits could possibly look like if you're married and filing jointly. And there's different options that we can look at here, but let's assume that, you're married and filing jointly. Your Social Security benefits are about $24,000. Say you're bringing in a pension, maybe $50,000. Maybe you don't have any exempt tax interests, with money in municipal bonds or T-bills or something like that. And let's say you're at a tax bracket of 25%. Let's be optimistic. If we look at this calculation, your taxable Social Security benefits would be $20,400. Now, assuming all your benefits are in a 25% tax bracket, then essentially the tax on your Social Security will be about $5,100. So if those of you are sitting down thinking to yourself, well, I had over-reliance on Social Security, I'm glad that you feel that way so that it can push you to saving more money. Well, right at this point, I get about, well, don't worry about it. My spouse will carry the rest of the load. Well, let's talk about that. 2.4 million Americans right now, it's about 1.8 billion in Social Security spousal benefits is received. So many people won't qualify for that. And what I mean is, it's not that you're not going to get your benefits, but these are the reasons why. You have to look at the eligibility based on 50% of the working spouse's benefit at their full retirement age. That's your PIA, or your primary insurance amount. When I calculate it for a spouse, I must say that 50% of that benefit, you have to wait until you do arrive at your full retirement age, but you can claim at 62, but know that it will be reduced by 35%. With that being said, this is the equation that we must look at. So Mark pointed out earlier that my number right here should be 1957. I apologize for the typo, but it still doesn't take away from the chart that the point is made that if you're at full retirement age at 66 and you take it at 62, all right, it will reduce down to $350. If you're expecting $500, I'm so sorry. It reduced by 30%. If you're at 67 years of age or later, and you're intended to retire, maybe look at that was full retirement age, but you took it earlier, it's going to drop down to about 3.25. It's going to drop by 35%. And again, that's taking it at age 62. Then we have to factor in work history, and then we have to also factor in income taxes are due on those dollars based on what? The combined income. So guys, ignorance is a choice. The 5 biggest misconceptions, hopefully I've addressed it. And whether Congress makes any changes or not, we have to go out and vote to be able to determine what Social Security will look like in the future. So I like to take us right into this direction, which I'm going to let Mark take it from here, because many of you might feel that your financial advisor or people that you have in your circle may be helping you with some of this. These are the questions, though, you need to ask them. We do respect our financial advisors. We are financial advisors, but there's some financial advisors that see it through a different sets of lenses, and I'm sure Mark will agree. So I'm going to let Mark go through the 4 toughest questions that you should be asking yourselves, okay? When we're going through this process of sliding into Social Security. And that first question, Mark, why don't you take it from there?
Sure. So what rate of return do you have to earn on your assets? I mean, most people have no idea, okay? And based on your standard of living, and how long it's going to last your life expectancy. I mean, it's things like this that people don't even think about, but it's something that you have to start thinking about.
Well, let's advance forward to the next one. Let's go to number 2. How much do you need to have saved? How do you feel about that one, Mark?
Well, I feel that it's not just how much you have to have saved. It's the amount that you have to have saved that, once again, it's going to last as you do, and it's tax advantaged as well.
All right. Let's look at number 3. How long will you have to work? This is a big one. You have to ask yourself. Many people that we speak to all the time are saying that they want to stop working as soon as they possibly can. But with the times that we live in now with uncertainty, there's no guarantee that's going to make sense. What do you think about that, Mark?
I see it every day with people. I had a woman this morning tell me that she was 58 years old and she wants to retire next year and she'll be 59. So we went through the numbers and realized that, you know what, just where your assets are positioned right now, just a little tweaking needs to be done to put them in a more tax efficient basis for her. But it's something that we still got to think about. I mean, most people don't want to work their entire life, unless you really love your job.
And do you love your job enough to work longer? Is what you have to ask yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of people have great concern about that. So here's the one, and I think her expression speaks the loudest. Reducing your standard of living. You are so used to your standard of living. Would you be willing to reduce your standard of living? Well, many of us would be forced to do it, right?
I said last week, a picture paints 1,000 words, and this picture is just.
She's terrified. So, yeah, we do deliberately do things like this, guys, in order to create relatability. When you're looking at these slides, we want you to feel a part of the process and not standing on the outside on the sidelines looking at it saying, well, not me, not me. It's enough of people saying not me, right, Mark?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So in conclusion, guys, the 4 toughest questions, if you guys answered no to each of those questions, in 15 minutes, both Mark and I can give you the answers to these questions. There is a better way for those of you who want to take retirement early, and those of you who believe that taking it later, there's also opportunities for you too. Is just sitting down and understanding what your goals and objectives are, and where are you best served and can use your money in the most efficient manner. What's your take, Mark?
Well, I think that being proactive here, because we brought up these 4 toughest financial questions that, we're trained. We can hit those answers to people in 15 minutes, and I think that if people should take us up on that. Okay, people need to understand the answers to these questions because, and really depends on where they are at in their lives as well. I mean, if you have an 18-year-old young man, it's going to be a lot different answers than somebody who is in their later 50s into their 60s. I mean, so the answer is going to be different for each individual. But the fact remains, take us up on our offer. I mean, you can't beat the price. And it's having the knowledge and the wisdom, because when it comes time for you to make those choices, you're comfortable with your answer.
Well, you have to ask yourself, can you afford not to do something about it? If you are feeling a little bit of anxiety right now, as I showed in those earlier slides, guys, if you're feeling that, a little bit of butterflies or a little bit of concern, it's well worth taking the time and having a educational discussion about what are your options. That's really all we're talking about. Look at your options. And if you're not even asking yourselves these questions, you have to ask yourself again, what are you thinking? I mean, do you want to find yourself forced to still work longer, forced to go back to work? Failure to plan is a plan to fail. So, Mark, why don't you kind of talk about your book more in the last 5 minutes? I'm so excited. Just even read it myself, because I had no idea that you're a published author. Tell us more.
Sure. I actually I sprung this on Fred about 5 minutes before we came on today. And this book I put out last year, and I was doing live workshops, and people who came into my Maximizing Social Security workshop, those who came in received the book. And I have to tell you, it was overwhelming response, because how much can you retain when you're talking to someone? Okay. It's nice to go back and open it up and look at maybe some questions that you might have are in this book with the answers. Okay. But the fact remains that you still It's nice to have a guide. It's really important that you have a guide of having the book, but it's also important that you have a guide, a human being, somebody like Fred or myself that could help sit down, plan, and get your specific answers answered. Because this book is only as good as how you make it. Okay, just like any other tool out there. And with Fred and I mean, experience and exposure with all different objectives that we come across on a daily basis makes us kind of unique, because everybody doesn't have that kind of ability to put on, utilize the software that is out there each year, dedicated just for Social Security analysis, which I think is really important that people should have. Everybody wants a clear plan, or should have a clear plan in place that things are going to work in conjunction with one another. And if you don't have that, you're winging it. And there's no reason why you should be winging it when you have professionals out there that are willing to help and assist and improve your better standard of being, but also any kind of cobwebs that are in your head, any thoughts that are question marks that you might be thinking. Well, let's help you and with us in mind to help answer all those questions that you might have.
Hey, look, I say you should give everyone a book. I hope you print it up enough that you've got 1,000 copies hidden below the camera, and you're just ready to just pack them in slips and send them out to everyone and anyone who's looking for it.
I am waiting.
Well, if you knew him like I knew him, and I thought I knew him because I'm just learning about him being an author. He is sincere and he leads with his heart, and his financial advice is always holistic. I say that's why we work so well together, because we both have the same philosophy.
We do.
So guys, if you have that same philosophy, if you need help, if you want help, reach out to us by simply just sending us a message, letting us know how we can help you. And this is our Financial Friday. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm just going to reach out again for those who did not hear the text. What I want you to do is just text income planning, all one word, hashtag Financial Friday to 36260. That way we'll have your information in there. But it asks you for your information. That way I have it and I can get this copy of this book to you.
Yes, let's repeat that one more time. Text the word income planning to hashtag Financial Fridays at the number 36260 to get a free copy of Marc Catano's book. Okay, I recommend it highly, guys. Thanks so much for your time today. And this is the end of our Financial Fridays. Have a good day.